My name is Vanessa. I never thought I'd be the kind of daughter who needed an invitation to her own parents' anniversary party. But there I was, standing outside the fancy country club venue, dressed in the navy blue dress I'd bought just for the occasion, holding a gift they'd never open, a stranger at my own family's celebration. It's just too many people already, my mother had said over the phone, her voice cold but rehearsed. Hope you understand. I didn't. Not then. Maybe I never would. But as I stood in that parking lot watching luxury cars pull in and hearing laughter echo from inside, I realized something. They had spent years pretending I wasn't enough, now they had made it official. And yet, they had no idea what I had become. That night, I stopped being the forgotten daughter. That night, the world was finally going to know my name. It wasn't always this way. I wasn't always the daughter left off guest lists or talked about in whispers. I used to be the little girl who clung to my mother's hand in the grocery store, who made handmade cards for every birthday and anniversary. I wanted their approval more than anything. I tried, God. I tried to be the kind of daughter who made them proud. Straight A's in high school? Well, your sister always got A+s. A scholarship to college? Don't get ahead of yourself. Your brother's firm offered him a spot before he even graduated. No matter what I did, it was never enough. My parents, Deborah and Leonard, adored appearances. The right house, the right friends, the golden children. My older brother Ryan was the rising legal star, and my younger sister Caitlin was the perfect blend of charm and ambition. And then there was me, the artsy one, the quiet one, the one who didn't fit their mold. I remember coming home for Christmas during my sophomore year of college. I had just landed an internship at a cutting-edge design agency, something I was incredibly proud of. I told them at dinner, trying to sound confident. My mom barely looked up from her roast. My dad nodded and said, "Sounds creative," like it was a dirty word. Then they moved on to ask Ryan about his latest courtroom win. I sat there smiling through clenched teeth, swallowing my pride with every bite of mashed potatoes. That moment set the tone for the next decade. I kept doing my thing, graduated early, moved to a different city, worked my way up from unpaid gigs to freelance contracts, and finally to founding my own design agency, but I stopped trying to share it with them. Every call with my parents became surface level, polite, but distant. They asked about the weather more than my work. Caitlin sent holiday cards signed only by her husband and kids. Ryan? He didn't even bother pretending. Still, a part of me kept hoping they'd one day see me not as the extra, but as someone who had built something from nothing. I wasn't asking for praise. I just wanted to be seen. So when I heard about the lavish 35th anniversary dinner they were planning, I thought maybe this was the moment. Maybe I'd get an invite. Maybe I'd walk in and they'd say, "Vanessa, we're proud of you." I even bought a dress, a dark blue, tailored thing that made me feel powerful. I wrapped a custom piece of framed art I'd designed a tribute to their wedding day. And I waited. The invitation never came. I found out about the party from a tagged post on Caitlin's Instagram. The caption read, "Honoring the legacy of love, Mom and Dad. You've shown us what marriage means." I stared at the screen for minutes, my hands cold. I wasn't just left out, I was erased. I called my mum that night. She didn't sound surprised. "We just wanted to keep it small," she said. "Just immediate family. Immediate family." As if I wasn't part of that equation. As if I hadn't existed all these years, quietly cheering them on from the shadows. That night, something broke, and something else began. After that call, I sat in silence, not crying, not yelling, just quiet. There's a particular kind of numbness that settles in when you finally realize a truth that's been chasing you for years. You were never part of the picture. Not really. I wasn't just excluded from the anniversary dinner, I was excluded from their sense of family. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened the portfolio for my design agency, not the one I showed clients, but the one I kept for myself. The one with the raw, emotional concepts I only created late at night when I couldn't sleep. In that moment, I realized something. I had spent so long waiting for their validation that I hadn't truly celebrated my own success. So I started digging into myself, into my work, into everything I had accomplished. I reached out to my PR contact, someone I had once hesitated to call. I told her I was ready. "You've been ready for years," she said. Within weeks, things began to shift. A podcast invitation, a profile piece, a design award nomination I didn't even know I'd been submitted for. It felt like the universe had been waiting for me to finally stop playing small. I didn't do any of this to prove something to my parents, or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. But some nights, when the house was quiet, I'd imagine what it would feel like to see my name in a place they couldn't ignore. To force them to look at me and say, "She did that." Then one evening, I got a call from a Fortune magazine editor. "We're doing a feature on female founders redefining creative industries," she said. "We followed your trajectory from underground designer to industry disruptor. We want you on the cover." I couldn't speak. It felt like being pulled into sunlight after living in shadows for years. Me? The cover? The same girl whose parents didn't even think to invite her to their anniversary dinner? "Yes," I finally whispered. "I'd be honored." We scheduled the shoot. They sent a stylist, a photographer, even a writer to shadow me for a few days. It was surreal, people listening to my ideas, asking about my process, treating me like I mattered. Not as someone's daughter, just Vanessa. I kept the whole thing quiet, not out of spite, but because I wanted it to be mine, pure, untouched by family dynamics or childhood wounds. For the first time, I was building something solely for me. But the day the magazine hit stands, everything would change. The morning the issue dropped, I walked to the corner cafe near my studio, like it was any other day. I had barely slept the night before, heart pacing, palms sweating, an odd mix of pride and dread. I wasn't afraid of the world seeing me. I was afraid of them seeing me. My parents, my siblings, everyone who had once called me too emotional, too much, a phase. I bought a copy of the magazine from the rack out front. There I was, on the cover. Bold lettering. Vanessa Tran, the quiet powerhouse behind a design revolution. I stared at it for a long time. It was surreal. Not because I doubted I belonged there, but because I had imagined this moment so many times in secret that part of me thought it would never come. I didn't send the magazine to my parents. Didn't text the group chat that had gone silent on me years ago. I just posted a single photo on my professional Instagram. The cover, no caption. I turned my phone face down and went about my day. But by noon, my world had turned inside out. Dozens of messages, hundreds of shares, mentions on Twitter, a LinkedIn post by the editor tagging me. Her work changed the way we see visual communication. Her story changed the way I see resilience. Then came the texts from numbers I hadn't seen in years. Old college classmates, past clients, my high school art teacher, and eventually, my brother, Luke. "Vanessa, you're on the cover of Fortune. This is insane. Mom saw it," she cried. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know what to say. Crying? The same woman who told me I'd regret walking away from a real career. The same one who wouldn't make eye contact the last time we were in the same room? More messages followed. From my cousins, from distant relatives, from people who were at that anniversary dinner. Now they wanted to catch up, reconnect. One even said, "We always knew you'd do big things." I almost laughed. Then came the voicemail from my stepmother. "Vanessa, I think we owe you an apology. Your father and I saw the article. We had no idea how much you'd accomplished. We're proud of you." Proud of me? Now? She ended the message with a request. They wanted to invite me over. Just dinner. No pressure, she said. We'd love to hear more about your work. I sat with that voicemail for hours. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. And a small, unfamiliar voice in the back of my mind whispered, maybe you don't need their approval anymore. But I wasn't done yet. Not entirely. Because if they wanted dinner, I had something better in mind. I didn't say yes to dinner. I didn't say no either. Instead, I made a call to an old friend from art school, now the events director at one of the city's most coveted venues. A converted loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, live greenery, and a curated menu from a chef who used to work in Paris. I had done the branding for their relaunch a year ago, and they owed me a favor. I booked it. For a Saturday. Under my name. No agenda. No speeches. Just a table. My table. Then I crafted the guest list not of obligation, but of gratitude. People who stood by me when I was just a girl sketching typography ideas in the margins of a part-time job. My college roommate who used to bring me tea when I worked through the night. A former client who believed in my studio before it had a website. The CEO who let me lead my first full rebrand on nothing but instinct and fire. I sent out invites. All digital. All simple. Subject line. Dinner. My treat. I didn't invite my family, but word got around. 3 days before the event, my sister Jenna messaged me. Heard you're throwing some kind of party. Congrats, by the way. I didn't respond. The next morning, I got an RSVP from an unexpected email dad. Tran, 47 at Centervise. It just said, looking forward to it, Dad, Michelle. I stared at the screen. They weren't invited. But somehow, they thought they were. I debated cancelling the whole thing. I could feel my chest tightening, the old panic creeping back in the fear of confrontation, of being swallowed whole by old dynamics. But then I remembered, this table was mine. This wasn't a revenge dinner. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about reclaiming space, about not shrinking. So I left the RSVP alone. I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. If they showed up, they'd see exactly what I'd built without apology, without their permission. Saturday came. The loft glowed with soft lighting, laughter, the clink of glasses, and the hum of possibility. I wore a simple black jumpsuit. Nothing flashy. But I walked taller than I ever had. And then, near the dessert course there they were. My father, my stepmother, standing at the entrance, unsure if they belonged. And for once, the power wasn't in their hands. It was in mine. They didn't have a reservation. They weren't on the guest list. But Michelle walked in like she owned the place. She tugged at my father's elbow, her lips already forming that smile tight, performative, glazed with condescension. She approached my table, the one I had so carefully curated for people who had earned their seat, and said loud enough for others to hear, "We were in the neighborhood. Thought we'd drop by and see what all the buzz was about. This looks nice." Nice. Like she was complimenting a thrift store. My dad didn't say much. He looked around, confused, maybe a little impressed, but still with that shadow of distance in his eyes as if even now, even here, he couldn't believe I had done all this. Michelle, without waiting for permission, pulled out a chair from the corner of the table and sat down. My father followed. My friends exchanged glances, uncomfortable. I took a breath and smiled politely. "I wasn't expecting you," I said. "Well, we heard you were hosting something," Michelle replied, buttering a dinner roll she hadn't been offered. "Would have been nice to be invited." "That's funny," I said, "because I wasn't invited to yours." She paused. A flicker of red touched her cheeks. "You could have still shown up," she said. "Your family." "No," I said calmly. "I'm blood. But family shows up for you when it matters. The room went silent for a second too long. Then someone laughed nervously. A guest tried to shift the conversation, and I let it. Not because I wanted to avoid the confrontation, but because I didn't need to fight anymore. This wasn't a battleground. This was home turf. They stayed awkwardly for 10 minutes, then stood. Michelle muttered something about being late for another engagement. My father kissed the top of my head, an old reflex, and said nothing as they left. But I saw his eyes. He saw the room. He saw the people. He saw me. For the first time, in a very, very long time, he saw me. After they left, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't toast to their retreat or make jokes with my guests. I just sat there for a moment, watching the door slowly close behind them, thinking about how many years I had waited for that exact moment. Not to humiliate them, not to win, but to be seen, to be acknowledged. The silence that followed their exit was heavier than applause. It was a recognition by everyone in that room that something important had just happened. My best friend Lexi leaned toward me, her voice low. "Are you okay?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "I think so," I whispered. The rest of the dinner unfolded in warm tones. Shared stories, laughter, passing dishes, refilling wine glasses. But somewhere in the background, I felt that ache settle in. Not anger, not regret, just grief. Grief for what could have been. For the mother-daughter bond that never took root. For the father who kept choosing quiet over confrontation. For the birthdays I spent waiting, and the milestones that passed unacknowledged. And yet, as I walked guests to the door and thanked them for coming, I felt something else underneath all that pain. Peace. This night wasn't about revenge, it never had been. It was about reclaiming the narrative. I wasn't the daughter who got left off a guest list. I was the woman who built her own table and filled it with people who saw her worth. Later, back in my apartment, I sat with a glass of wine by the window, still dressed in my formal gown, makeup a little worn at the edges. I didn't bother turning on the lights, just watched the city breathe in shadows and gold. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. "You looked beautiful tonight. I'm proud of you." It hit me harder than I expected. Maybe it was a peace offering. Maybe it was too little, too late. But still it was something. I didn't reply. Not yet. I just saved the message. Because for once, the silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of everything that had never been said. A week passed. I didn't hear from my parents again, not a word from my mum, and only that single, quiet message from my dad. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I ever would be. But the world didn't stop for family drama. On Monday morning, I returned to work. My startup had just closed Series B funding, and I had a full calendar of investor calls and strategy meetings. Yet even as I led my team through projections and timelines, I carried that dinner with me. The images lingered: my mother's cold gaze, my father's silence, the flash of recognition on their faces when they realized this version of me was someone they'd never taken the time to know. That Friday, I was invited to speak at a tech conference. It was last minute, but they wanted someone who had broken through barriers. I hesitated, then said yes. When I stepped on stage, something shifted. I told my story, not the family drama, of course, but the path I had walked. The nights I coded until dawn, the pitches that fell flat, the investors who laughed at me because I was too soft-spoken, or worse, too pretty to be technical. I told them how I had been overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated for years. And then, I told them about the moment it changed. "Success," I said into the mic, scanning the crowd, "doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in silence, when the people who never believed in you finally run out of excuses." After the speech, Someone approached me backstage. A woman, older, eyes soft but piercing. "I've followed your work," she said. But hearing that felt personal. "Thank you." I nodded, suddenly unsure what to say. Her voice broke the fog I didn't realize I'd been walking through. That evening, I got another text. This time from my sister, Olivia. "Saw your speech. Proud of you. Mom hasn't stopped talking about it." My heart did something strange, it twisted. Maybe. I hadn't spoken to Olivia in years. She'd always been the buffer, the one who tried to keep the peace by saying nothing at all. I didn't know how to respond. So I just said, "Thanks. I hope she finally listened." She replied, "Maybe she did." For once, I stared at those words for a long time. Not because I believed everything had changed, but because, maybe, some things had. Maybe this wasn't about reconciling with the past. Maybe it was about moving forward, even if they stayed behind. A few months have passed since that conference speech. The one that without me realizing shifted the narrative. Not just out in the world, but inside me too. I haven't seen my parents since the night of their anniversary dinner. They haven't reached out, not directly. There have been small things: a forwarded article from my mum's email with no subject line, a LinkedIn connection request from my dad. Olivia said they asked about me recently, but I didn't ask what they said. I didn't need to know. What mattered is this: I no longer need their approval. That ache I used to carry, the longing to be invited, seen, celebrated, has dulled into something else. Not bitterness, not even sadness, just clarity. The family dinner that excluded me? It used to feel like a wound. Now it feels like a line in the sand. A moment where I finally understood the power in choosing myself. I've built something real. My company is thriving. I've hired 10 new employees, mentored 2 young founders, and just last week, I was asked to join a board of advisors for a female-founded venture capital firm. And that Fortune magazine cover? It wasn't even something I campaigned for. They reached out. When the issue dropped, I didn't tell anyone. No grand announcements, no humble brag posts. I bought a single copy from a local bookstore, walked home, made myself coffee, and sat down at my kitchen table. There I was, on the cover. Vanessa Lee, CEO, innovator, the woman who built a future others tried to deny. Her. I smiled, not because it meant I had finally proven myself, but because it no longer mattered who I was proving it to. I sent a photo of the cover to Olivia. No caption. She replied, "You always were the strongest one." I never responded. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to say anything. Later that week, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten. From my mom. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Because sometimes, the most powerful part of the story is realizing you don't need to finish every chapter with a reconciliation. Some things heal quietly, on your terms. And that, I've learned, is enough.